Hello, Reese from the Point Music Podcast thingy. It's been a while since I've done another one. Life gets in the way, gets busy, but I got a cool one for you. Did a premiere for this artist about a week and a bit ago. Anyway, Satellite Mile released the debut full-length album, The Water's Edge, and it is incredible, very immersive, very cinematic. Takes elements from prog and like electronica and stuff like Depeche Mode, and it's just a beautifully complex but also easy to listen to and immersive album. And I chat to Ben, who is basically Satellite Mile, all about it. And this is what this episode is, ladies and gentlemen, and people of all sorts. Satellite Mile. And rolling. I'm just going to bring up the right one. There we go. Ben, aka Satellite Mile. Man, thanks for jumping in on this one.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, welcome. Well done on The Water's Edge, mate. It's like I said, it's very immersive and very cinematic. And I was just listening to it before when I was doing a pizza run to get some food, and so much like a soundtrack to some like Blade Runner-ish kind of thing going on there, which is pretty epic.
Thank you. I love Blade Runner, so I'll take that as a compliment.
You should. Hang on, which version of Blade Runner? The director's cut, the original version, or the latest one?
Final cut and the Villeneuve sequel.
I like that sequel.
I think for something that could have gone awry, I thought they did an amazing job of it. Would
you have taken reference for anything on The Water's Edge from the soundtrack to, like, using the, like, I know that the Deckard, it's a Juno. I think it's a Juno that they use in that, or a Prophet.
So the original Vangelis used a Yamaha CS80.
Ooh.
That's all over the original. I assume there's. I'm assuming there's some of that on 2049.
Have to be references there somewhere, right?
For me, like both those soundtracks are absolutely influential for me. I don't have a CS80. I have. There are actually a couple of samples of CS80 in this one little section. But yeah, there's plenty of Juno and Prophet 5 and. Some Oberheim as well, but Blade Runner I would probably associate more with CS80.
Right, well, there you go. Nerded out, and I didn't even know. I just always thought Prophet, basically. That for those people that are listening to this, they don't. It's a very famous synth from the 80s and 70s as well, weren't they? Were they late 70s?
Yeah, late 70s.
And they're being recycled and reused again in a lot of, there's a lot of artists that are using the sort of like the 80s references as pop kind of stuff. They actually use like Prophet and Juno sort of tones. I know this.
I mean, they're classic instruments for a reason. There's I've got a Juno 6 here. I've got the reissue of the Prophet 5.
Wow.
It sounds beautiful. Is it exactly the same? It's probably not exactly the same, but it's. I guess the question is, does it matter?
No, it doesn't. I think it's only those that are full audiophiles that would actually even sort of appreciate that. That most people just get a familiarity out of it, and that's basically it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you take the time to sort of learn what they all do and find where they fit well, and then they're incredible instruments. They're instruments in their own right, I think.
Well, pick one out of the three: the Yamaha, the Prophet, and the Juno. Which one would be your go-to?
I probably have to say Prophet 5 is probably what I use the most. Yeah.
Why's that?
I think the Prophet 5 out of those three. I think the Prophet 5 is probably the most versatile, although there's, Junos are used on everything. And I guess it depends which Juno you mean. There's the 6 and the 60, and then there's the 106, and they're quite different. But the Prophet 5 similar to the Mini Moog. It's been used on so many like Talking Heads used the Prophet 5 quite a lot.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. That's cool.
But yeah, you wouldn't. Some people wouldn't really associate Prophet 5 with Talking Heads, but yeah, Jerry Harrison and Bernie Worrell, they've used heaps of Prophet 5 Talking Heads. I guess it covers, the Prophet covers all this ground. Like it's got that beautiful, lush pads and stuff like that, but it can do so many different things.
Which is basically what The Water's Edge was full of, was that lush sort of, like, to really appreciate it, I had to listen to it through headphones. I mean, I listened to it in the car stereo, it's cool, but to be immersed in it and to sit back and just stare at the ceiling and just listen to the textures that you put into that, because there's a lot going on, but it's all carefully orchestrated and all well layered, so it's not interfering with anything. It creates this journey. So how long did it take to put this whole thing together, this whole concept?
Well, it's hard to say in terms of writing the whole thing, because there's a bit of it is sort of quite, for me, quite old, sort of beginning from a prior music project. Okay. I sort of, because the singing is a bit of a recent thing. So I once I sort of had that happening, I revisited those and those couple of songs and sort of, basically made them from scratch. And then that was kind of the starting point. And then over time, as I got a bit more confident with the singing and also because I'm mainly a guitar player, but I started getting really fascinated with synthesizers sort of over time. And then I'd sent a couple of I started with one demo that I sent to a few people and with me singing on it, and the feedback was really positive, and I figured they can't all be lying. And so from there I sort of, then I did another one, and then I got a sense of where it all might sit sonically as to what I could kind of do with it. So it's hard to sort of pinpoint a time for the writing. I think the recording didn't take too long, like, because I made really thorough demos.
Yeah.
And so we definitely added stuff in the studio, but the songs were quite set by the time they went in there. And so we kind of did it in a couple of chunks, and then we picked up a few other things. I did a couple of little things here, and so it's a bit difficult to put an exact sort of time frame on that, because it kind of took a while to make. But then the recording, and then Paul Gomersall, who mixed it, he he did his thing, and then it was done.
So basically, you took the pretty well formatted sort of demos over to Pete Gardner and worked with him to flesh it out. It sounds like you already had it basically formatted, that you just needed just a bit of sprinkle of like magic dust on there just to make it a bit more cohesive, right?
Yeah, so I would say the songs were pretty done, but I'm definitely not an audio engineer. Like I can write the stuff, but I shouldn't be recording it. And so I went to Pete and showed him all the stuff, and basically said, would you like to work on this with me and make it into a real thing? And then we just kind of got started, and we did it a little bit out of order to what you might normally do. Like we did the drums sort of happened later.
Yeah, I can understand though, because were they live tracked, or they're just programmed drums?
So it's a bit of a mix. So Joel Alexander, who some might know from Dubmarine.
Yep.
I'm guessing you know who Dubmarine. Mm-hmm. So he played like the live kit parts, and then some of it is programmed drums. And we had some fun sort of treating, making the real drums kind of sound electronic and vice versa. and Joel did the bass. So he's this phenomenal keyboard player.
Yeah.
But, I didn't know that at the time, and he said, "Would you like me to do the bass?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So he did the bass, and then I basically did everything else, all the synths and guitars and stuff. That's me. But so we kind of we got started, and then we just sort of pieced it all together. But yeah, the songs were pretty complete. There's some things like there's an end section on the track Disillusion, where there's this big synth wash, and then it kind of like that end section, I did that right at the end. That wasn't on the original demo. And also some of the like effects kind of stuff. There was a couple of sessions where I took in like I have some of the old Muga Fuga effects and stuff like that, and basically just had some playtime being a bit spontaneous, which is I like to kind of be really prepared, but then allow a bit of time at the end because now you can hear everything.
Yeah.
So I just like to try and make it nice.
Well, that's when if you do a little spontaneous things, that's where the happy accidents start to occur, particularly in the production thing. Like because I've been doing my own solo project and I've been producing in that for a few years now. But my own solo project, which is why I sort of smirked when you were talking about your voice before, because I never sung before either. So yeah, I familiarized with that. But yeah, I found that in the songwriting, as much as you have everything fleshed out, but then you start going through another process where you're just going, I'm going to muck around with this bit here, and these little happy accents occur, and it will change something in the song. You will find a hook there for some reason. Did you find that happen?
Musically, yes, there are other ideas that started coming. I think with the singing, like I had to really concentrate on just getting right what was there, and having it. Pete had this really nice mic. I forget what it was, but it's the first time I'd really heard my voice like under the microscope like that, and that's pretty daunting. But it's great. It's awesome. That's what you got to be challenged. So, but definitely. And I didn't own a Juno at the time, so I'd hired a couple of things, and even just having those set up, and I'd start to kind of hear something, and then it's okay. Well, let's see what happens when we do this, and that's. But it was good because having everything pretty cooked already, cooked in a good way. It meant that it gave a really good starting point for those more spontaneous things. So there was more sort of colouring in.
Yeah.
But a lot of that happened towards the end after I'd sort of heard everything. Once you hear the guitars are down, it's like, okay,
yeah,
I should add this little thing here, or but more what you're talking about, more musically, yes, vocally, not so much. It was just sort of, I just got to get it right.
All right, so I've asked this question a few times now, and particularly given that I was on the search for my own voice per se. Like, I didn't know. I've harmonized and sung backing vocals in bands for quite some time, but I've never had to take like front and center, right? And I didn't know what my voice was supposed to be, if that makes sense. Like, I can harmonize, and that's fine. Sense. So it took me a while to figure out, and I've asked this question a few times now for people. How did you find your voice? How did you settle on what you wanted to do? What made sense?
So this took some time. So when the prior music thing that I talked about, so that's called Elk Mountain. It's actually still online. I made an EP with a female singer.
All right.
And so and that sort of unfortunately sort of fell over, and I was kind of left not really knowing what to do with all this stuff. And then it was actually my dad that said to me, well, you're writing all these singing parts, why can't you be the singer? And it's like, well, I'm not a singer. And he's like, well, but you don't know what you sound like.
Yep.
You've never really sort of gone down that road before. And I thought, well, I can't really argue with that. So so I went to Maggie Noonan, who's the mum of Ty and Katie.
Yep.
From George. And I'd known Maggie for a while, and basically asked if she would teach me. So a lot of people forget, like she was an
opera singer or something,
high profile opera singer. Yeah, like she was big time. And she teaches, and she was fantastic. Like she like I had it in my mind that, well, if I can't sing like Polly Serena era Tyrone or Jeff Buckley or Tom York or something, it's like, well, that, or Maynard James Keenan or something, it's like, well, I should just pack it up, because but then she was like, well, you can't think like that. And she said, firstly, you're a baritone. So, and I feel like a total doofus, I'm sort of not coming to that on my own, but in hindsight. But she said, she said, I'm a mezzo soprano, so I sing mezzo soprano repertoire. It's better to just embrace what your voice wants to do. So so she's like, why don't you have a think about some baritone singers? And it turns out, Nick Cave, David Garn, Chris Isaac,
where the Depeche Mode sort of influence comes in a little bit there too, man.
And I realized there was all this music I really liked with the baritones. And so I did the training stuff with her, and then we worked on a couple of songs, and then the other part of the answer to that is I did a lot of open mics. And so I was just relentless for, I think, probably about 18 months. So I was living back down the Gold Coast at that stage, and so I would drive to Brisbane, have my lesson with Maggie, and then the same evening I would go and do an open mic, and then I would do another one down here on the weekend. Wow. And I just did that every week, and just felt like a total fool the first couple of times. But I
was going to say it'd be daunting as fuck, right? Because you used to just being the guitarist I know that feeling.
And it's everything's exposed, so it's a great thin, and not only for the singing, but singing and playing guitar as well, and so I just started turning up, and I had two or three songs that I could sort of pull off, and then I just sort of kept extending that, and then recorded some of it, and that's what I thought. Well, it doesn't sound as bad as I think it does. Actually, I can kind of hear. I started to hear what it actually sounded like, and then maybe more importantly, what I might be able to maneuver with that. And then and so after a little while doing that's when I started basically making the demos and recording myself. And then, as I'm sure you can probably relate to, like, you sort of start to hear the tonality or the and then you start to sort of go, okay, well, I'll start with what I already had, and then just kind of play with it, and but I always remember, I take a lot of inspiration from Flynn Gower from Cog. He was a guitar player who he sort of sang out of necessity. And he has his his awesome voice, and I never had any intention of being a singer, but I found it to be like a really limiting thing, like sort of having this reliance on someone else to sing, and so that's part of it, and then by then I was playing with Tyrone, so I played with Tyrone on this stuff, and he was really encouraging and really supportive, and so I started doing like backings, with him, and of course that helped. But it's different when you're the singer, which is a very alien sort of concept for me. But
Yep.
so it basically that over a long period of time sort of got me to recording with Pete and just doing the best I could at the time, and yeah, that's how I found out.
I liken it to like me being a bass player and having been for like 3 decades plus, being in a very brightly lit room, and then when you're forced to sing and find your own voice, you've turned the light off, and you're basically feeling your way through until your eyes adjust. And as soon as your eyes are adjusting and you're starting to see things in the dark that you couldn't see just before. Does that make sense? Like it's basically, the more you're using it and the more you're adjusting to it, the more you go, oh, okay, I can do this. I can see this part here, and this is how it's going to work. Anyway, that's how my weird brain was trying to figure out, find out my vocality and my tone.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, that's a really good explanation. It's like you sort of you kind of seeing the environment again for the first time.
Yep, in a different light.
Definitely. It was interesting, and also because I had to really kind of transition away from thinking as just being a guitar player and go, well, okay, well, no one's coming to help me. I have to.
Yep.
I have to be able to think much more holistically, and whereas before, you churn out parts, but okay, well that's great. But as I found out, it's sort of, it's a whole other thing to sort of to turn that into a coherent series of ideas and something that can be a song, and but it's a great thing, as we've both experienced. It makes you evolve as a musician and as a person, I think, as well. It really
definitely
just makes you. I think you have to be open-minded, and you have to be feeling okay with taking, gambles and feeling like a bit of an idiot maybe at first, but I did
definitely feel exposed, right?
But just have you have faith that it's like, okay, well, if I keep going.
I mean, surely
it's not as.
Surely, being surrounded by people like Tyrone Noonan and Clint Bogue as well, you could ask them basically for hints or pointers, basically lyrically and vocally, as to where you should be approaching this, right? Because those two are easily some of my favorite singers. Clint is up there as one of my favorite. I've known Clint for a very long time. I used to play in sort of like new metal and progressive metal bands back in the early 2000s. So like I said, I think we've crossed paths at one point.
I probably so, yeah.
Yeah, and having been a fan of George as well, and seeing Tyrone play, and they know their craft. So of all people to know, I mean, there's some of the best ones to ask for any kind of clues or hints, really.
Ty has always been really generous with helping me along the way, and I mean, and for some George trivia, so Jeff Green is the drummer in Satellite Mars. So he's, I mean, for me that's a huge, like George was an enormous thing for me, very formative, as was Cog and Butterfly Effect.
Yep.
And I was at the Butterfly Effect EP launch, where Cog played. That's the first time I saw Cog too, and so that's all around the same sort of time, kind of early 2000s, and so I was really fascinated with George. Like it was this, it's this beautiful, complex music with these vocalists that are sort of from another world, and
they were way too clever for the scene, to be honest with you. Way too clever.
And it's very serious music, but it's still very accessible, and they were enormous, at the time. They were so yeah, obviously and I've known Clint sort of on and off, not as well as I know Ty, but yeah, I mean Clint Bogue is a extraordinary vocalist, absolutely, and and also I think I would add another thing, like particularly, even though it sounds nothing like Satellite Ma, but Cog and the Butterfly Effect. I mean, a lot of people forget, like, they were the ones who really sort of put in the yards.
Yep.
Like Cog and their residency at the SB in St Kilda. A lot of people forget that. Butterfly Effect and Ochre as well. Who were around at the time.
And Dead Letter, basically, which came from Ochre. Yep.
So I was at a lot of those gigs, and I took a lot of inspiration from all of them, and I really looked up to them, and tried to sort of go, okay, well, here that's where the bar is, and so in all those cases, it's different music, but it's so of course, playing with Ty and now Jeff, I mean, it's an enormous buzz.
Yeah.
And so I used to live in Sydney, so a band I was in Sydney used to play quite a bit with Cog and the Butterfly Effect. They're really formative experiences, and I think it's if you're going to take inspiration, then there's not much better, in this country.
I mean, the whole album itself is beautifully complex. I mean, you like you said, you are taking sort of like hints and clues from progressive sort of material, like like Cog and Butterfly Effect and Dead Letter, and then you're mixing it with this electronica vibe, which is where I was hinting at the Depeche Mode sort of vibe to it as well. There isn't that much like this sort of material happening right now. I mean, there is in spatterings, but to come out with a full album, it takes a lot, man. So it's an absolutely beautiful album. I get sent stuff a lot of the time to take in, and albums can be a mission. Yours was easy to digest because the fact that I could just basically sit back and, like I said, stare at the ceiling and just visualize all the stuff going on. And that's why I appreciated it.
Thank you very much.
So what was the actual message you wanted to convey in this album?
I'm not sure that there's a message. I remember I don't know if you're a fan of Devin Townsend at all, but in nothing musically to do with Satellite Ma, but I'm a big fan of Devin Townsend, and I remember in the cover of Terrier, that's probably my equal favorite Devin album, that says the message is there is no message. And it's kind of, I don't really, I'm not sure that there's really any kind of message going on the water's edge. I think the theme of dreams and sort of, otherworldly ideas and imagery and stuff like that has sort of found its way. And and the bookends thing is quite deliberate. So hypnagogia and hypnopompia. So it's like when you enter and exit when you fall asleep and you enter a dream.
It's a lucid dreaming kind of thing, right?
It can be, yeah. And I'm a significant fan of David Lynch, and obviously that gets into dreams and all kinds of interesting topics. But so I didn't really set out to make it all about sort of one particular thing. I guess I sort of think of it as it works as a coherent sort of piece.
Yeah.
And I think that it was very deliberately, like the order is very deliberate for sure. But they were written in like I was saying before, like a couple of those songs have origins that for me are very old.
Ages ago, yeah.
But I sort of retooled them as I started to sort of come up with the other stuff. Probably the song "The Water's Edge" is probably is where it sort of turned a bit of a corner into. I think that helped orient everything else, and then and then it all sort of it ended up sort of becoming. It sort of sorted itself out in terms of the order, but I don't think I had a particular idea in mind in terms of what it's all supposed to be about. I think, I think that it could also be more interesting for the listener to then sort of, I feel like you could take it in a few different directions.
Yeah.
There's themes, but there's not necessarily a message. If that makes sense.
Yep. So I'm going to wrap things up now because we got the whole message from Zoom saying we got to run out of time. Last thing, what are you hoping for someone to take out of this, and what's next?
I think to take out of it, I like the idea of people listening to it as in one sitting.
Yeah.
I think hearing something that's been put together with care and with a lot of deliberate attention and like you were saying before, there's a lot going on. It's all very deliberate, and so I like the idea of someone who's a music lover, just sort of putting it on with headphones. I think it's definitely a headphone album. It's the amazing mix that Paul Gomersall did. And to take away, well, here's something really interesting that perhaps I haven't heard before. And in terms of what's next, we have the launch show coming up on the 30th of August at the Powerhouse.
Nice.
And the live side of things is still we're ready to play, but it's we're still sort of adjusting.
Of course. What
that looks like. And so what's next, I think we'll transition into playing live more.
Epic.
And get out and about.
Oh, great job, Ben. Really enjoy this chat with you, man, and well done on the Water's Edge, mate. I'll recap things here. The Water's Edge is out now. I'll put a link in it to all the streaming services and that whatnot. For everyone else, we're going to tune out. But this has been Ben from Satellite Mile. Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Big love to Ben Love, aka Satellite Mile, for those chats. Do check out the Water's Edge. Have just sit back, pour yourself a fine wine or a whiskey, and just stare at the ceiling like I did, and just listen to the textures. It's a very cool album. Yeah. I think I've got to get some more podcasts happening. We're nearly hitting that 100 mark. This is episode 94, so. If the first time you've ever listened to this podcast before, subscribe, do all that sort of jazz and show your love for it. I've been doing it for 5 years now. So yeah, would have thought I hit 100 episodes before that, but like I said, life gets in the way. Got some more coming up. I do. So like I said, subscribe and you'll find out when they come live. Big thank you for all your support. Thank you for supporting local music, live music, Australian music, all sorts of music. You guys are legends. Bye.